You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation intro cast. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
Every week, James and I will be guiding Alex, as though blind by his lack of Star Trek The Next Generation knowledge, through the maze of wonders that is this amazing show. This week we are watching Haven. This was written by Tracy Tormey, from a story by Tracy Tormey and Lano Kuhn, directed by Richard Compton. It aired the week of November 30th, 1987. James, what is the synopsis for this one?
The Enterprise arrives at the planet Haven, where Troi receives an exciting talking box. This signifies that her betrothed, a doctor named Wyatt, has arrived with his sitcom parents, and she has to marry him and leave the ship. Troi's overbearing mother, Lwaxana Troi, also comes aboard and irritates all the crew. Wyatt is disappointed that Troi is not the woman he has seen in his dreams his whole life. Coincidentally, a ship full of plague-carrying Terrellians arrives at Haven looking for a haven. On board is Wyatt's dream woman, so he leaves the Enterprise to join them and find a cure, meaning Troi can stay on board.
Well, that synopsis makes it sound a lot more elaborate than it possibly was. Alex, first impressions of this one?
Well, this is, or at least it starts being a return to doing a comedic episode. Probably the first since The Naked Now to be out and out trying to be comedic. That shifts in the second half. There's quite a tonal shift. What I want to know is, why did they feel the need to do a Jewish mother sitcom? Right down, in fact, to the whole thing of, he's a doctor, you gotta marry a doctor, and why do you never call your mother?
But isn't it nice that Councillor Troi's finally getting her own backstory and episode?
No.
But you're right, it is an interesting approach. It does seem to take a lot of tropes from sitcoms. It's a comedy of manners in many ways. For some reason, Betazoid culture has arranged marriage. Fine with that. Different planets have different cultures, usually very similar to some Earth cultures. What are the chances of that happening? But in this case, there's an arranged marriage based on DNA, but for some reason Troi is marrying a human male, and the two families have some kind of strange backstory that we're never really privy to. But clearly there's a bit of a class difference, with Lwaxana Troi obviously thinking that she is above this family. But it all seems very strange. They've never met before, they've not seen pictures of each other, and it doesn't seem like anybody really is that invested in actually getting married. It just seems that Wyatt has reached a stage in his life where he just wants to cash in his wife tokens.
That's good, because I was watching it thinking I've clearly missed something here as to why she's arranged to be married to a human, but evidently no, it just wasn't explained. Right, well, that makes me feel a lot better.
Well, let's go to the start of the episode. They arrive at Haven, which seemingly has no relation to Deanna Troi, but there's a delivery for her. A creepy face box full of jewels.
Yes, that was one of the stranger moments of the series so far. Slightly 60s series in a way, I guess, but just generally creepy as hell. Because, I mean, if you want to send a greeting to someone, why not send the box with the mad face that comes to life and shouts at you? It's a big seller at funerals, I understand.
And the Betazoid gift box was played by Armin Shimmerman, who goes on to play a main character in Deep Space Nine, and was a Ferengi in The Last Outpost.
That's right, and actually this was his first appearance, this episode in the production order. This was the 5th episode produced. They put it back for a little while, I can't really think why.
So, who was playing the valet, because he looked familiar? Was he playing the Traveller a couple of weeks ago?
No.
To take another guess then, into tall roles, has he played Lurch at some point?
That's right, he has played Lurch.
Hey, what a guess! To be fair, it was going to be just one of a handful of tall roles, but...
Yes, Mr. Homn is played by Carel Struycken, who you may know from various films, such as The Addams Family as Lurch, or Addams Family Values, or indeed the straight-to-video Addams Family Reunion.
I didn't know that existed.
I think he was the only returning cast member. I suppose this episode should have been an exploration of Riker and Troi's backstory, which we saw hinted at in the pilot episode and has pretty much been ignored ever since. We do get hints of that, in particular in the holodeck scene where Riker chooses to go to the planet set that we visit every week.
Yeah, really just getting their money's worth out of that, aren't they? All it ends up doing is making Riker come across as sort of quite a petulant child of, oh no, I don't care that we split up. I really don't care that we split up. You're seeing someone else. I can't catch you. Don't leave.
And do they confirm in this episode that it was Riker who split up with her?
I think they did so in quite passive-aggressive terms, with Troi saying, all he wants to do is captain a starship. So I think that did imply that he had left to go and do that. We should get on to Lwaxana Troi, an important recurring character in Star Trek The Next Generation, of course played by Majel Barrett, or Majel Barrett Roddenberry to give her full name.
I wonder how she got that gig.
Who knows? She played number 1 in the original pilot, The Cage, and was Nurse Chapel, recurring through the original series and movies.
God, she's so lucky to just fall into that role.
She's also been the computer voice since the 1960s, right up to Star Trek 2009. Here she plays a very different character. She has actually been quite diverse in her Star Trek roles. She's the overbearing mother. We needed one of those in Star Trek, I thought, because we've not had a character like that, and it's great to make the entire crew a bit uncomfortable, especially as she is completely psychic and kind of abusing her powers in that way, I think.
I don't want to do it down too much, but it is sort of a one-note joke most of the time. Oh, look, she's making the captain carry the bags. Oh, what's she like? Oh, she's saying something inappropriate. Oh, what's she like? Oh, she's suggesting that the father of the bride would like to take her roughly. Oh, what's she like?
But you can't wait to see her other 8 episodes.
Yes.
Marina Sirtis has clearly decided to go for a very particular accent to establish her as an alien. It is in no way her normal accent. It's kind of a mix of English and Russian.
It's Eurotrash, basically. Where are you from exactly? I don't know. It's just around the place, I guess. And
yeah, as you say, when her mother arrives, she's very much American Jewish mother. And she even comments, you picked up that accent from your father. Well, where was he from?
I would just like to point out, though, that her accent is anything but consistent. It's as each episode has gone by, it's started to trail off more and more just her English accent is coming through.
Just wait to the movies when she no longer cares and is just happy to be working. But back to Haven, what do you think of the great romance between Wyatt and Troi? I mean, we've not really had much in the way of dating in this show so far, but here it is.
I mean, she's not the obvious character to do it with, is she? So you're always going to get a slightly stilted affair, which I guess is what they were going for. But it does mean there was a rather large lack of chemistry, which I guess is equally sort of the point.
I actually do favour the approach that this episode takes in some ways. It is character focused. The planet of the week doesn't really make any impact. It's just a place they have to be, another subtly named planet. And the B plot and A plot dovetail into one consistent plot. It's not exactly smooth sailing, but at least it shows somebody's bothered to learn how to write a screenplay at the very least, which you can't say for all of these episodes.
No, I mean, as I said at the start, it has a very definite change towards the second half, and you don't necessarily expect that for it to go from the comedic to the fairly serious. But it does work, and yes, it all ties up. I was surprised to see a ship turn up, and you see the inside of the ship, and it's basically like looking through a window into 60s Star Trek.
Now, the Torellians, they're from a plague-ridden world. It was caused by biological warfare. All the people have dispersed across the universe. There's probably not many left. Nobody wants them because this plague is highly infectious to everyone. There's one ship approaching haven, looking for sanctuary, and we see them. The plague doesn't seem to have any symptoms whatsoever, and they do appear to have based their technology on a 60s disco.
There's been a lot of odd costuming decisions and set dressing decisions. This is one of the weirder, I would say.
Did you know that Gene Roddenberry took a particular interest in the costume department?
Did he? Did he really?
I wouldn't say it's a particularly well-realised culture. If they've got a plague, I really want to see symptoms that they've got some kind of plague, and they are in some way suffering. Obviously all their people are dead, but they look fine, they seem quite happy.
You heartless sod. Yes, I know what you mean. It's they don't look very ill, unless the illness is baldness. But there were various things I had problems there with. I mean, the other thing was, maybe it was explained, but I didn't pick up on it. How has she been able to communicate with him all this time, that she's been able to communicate so that he's been picturing her in his mind all this time? I'd never really understood.
Didn't you hear that Lwaxana said, well, all the universe is connected anyway, so this sort of thing happens? What? Really? And but why them? What's the connection? Is there some kind of destiny involved? No, it's just connected. You're a doctor, you can cure diseases. You're supposed to be together.
Oh, a handsome doctor. Well, yeah, that's very hand-wavy, isn't it?
Well, it could have been worse. They could have said it was midichlorians that did it.
I don't mind that. I'm alone in that belief. Fundamentally, you should care about how a solution could be reached and his decision to go over there and whatnot. But really, the cares of the audience are wound up with Troi and her mother more so. So it's just a detail of the plot that you have to get past to get back to the story that people are really concentrating on. And as such, they perhaps take certain liberties with just throwing in anything.
Andrew, is Lwaxana Troi unpopular to Star Trek fans? Is that an unpopular character?
Well, my overriding perception is that she's incredibly unpopular with Star Trek fans, and it's just been a vehicle created so that Majel Barrett could get to be on the show. But the character itself is written to be irritating to all our crew, so I'm not really sure. I think occasionally she's quite good. It's nice to shake things up, in the same way that Q comes in and rubs all the crew up the wrong way just by the virtue of having any form of charisma. It is quite nice to see Picard uncomfortable, but yeah, I think she's not a very good character.
But then Keith Chegwin is hired for the purposes of entertainment. It doesn't mean he provides it.
Certainly, I don't dislike Lwaxana Troi as a character. I'm not delighted when I see an episode comes up, but neither am I, horrified at it. It's not like when I see an episode of Voyager entirely set in Fairhaven. Then I go, oh, no.
Or like in Deep Space Nine when it's a Ferengi episode and you go...
I love the Ferengi episodes in Deep Space Nine. Especially the most sexist episode of Star Trek ever.
Every show does need a bit of comic relief at some point, and she serves a function. She's never going to be my favourite character.
I do increasingly get the feeling that I like a lot of stuff that people hate.
It's good for diversity.
We're the diverse podcast with 3 white males.
We've talked a bit about the costumes, but it turns out Betazoid weddings involve everybody getting naked. Seems there's a bit of a theme running through Star Trek The Next Generation at the moment, isn't there?
Would that be something to do with Roddenberry's influence, I wonder?
Look, he's just trying to say that other cultures are different and that most of them like seeing naked women.
Oh, and men. Don't forget, they were allowed to still have men. One thing I found interesting was I've talked them down and only some of us will be naked. I'll be naked, you'll be naked, your mother will be naked, and your father, but not your mother. Hang on, why is his father getting naked? If his mother's not getting naked, clearly his father doesn't get naked unless he's trying to show off the goods to her mother.
I just think the whole thing would be quite uncomfortable.
Well, it's not practical, is it? I mean, there's cutting of cakes and dancing at the disco. There's things that can swing around. It's not that practical, and confetti gets everywhere.
One thing I wanted to mention was the, engagement reception that they have, where all the women seem to have done something really weird with their hair.
If we're talking about the reception, we should have this conversation with this sound breaking in every so often. Just every so often, just as the conversation's going through, just occasionally, just a dong just going on in the background. It's not annoying, it just continues and it's there constantly. I suppose it's there for comedic purposes, but it will continue whether you like it or not. You may say it's gone past the point of actually being funny, and they might reference it in the script. But no, we're going to continue with the dong.
Well, it's just like Stuart Lee. If you do it enough times, it'll become funny again.
It's still funny. Data at the reception, did we like his character moments? He's enjoying the petty squabbles of the bickering humans.
I thought he had a great line here. I always like Data's lines like this. When Deanna says, "Stop this petty bickering, all of you, especially you, Mother." And then Data says, "Could you please continue the petty bickering? I found it most intriguing."
Haha, he doesn't understand things.
Stop doing that now. I find that amusing.
Let's sum up some elements that we don't have much to say about in our quickfire round.
Quickfire.
Now, what does Riker like doing in his leisure time? He seems to like watching holograms of people playing the harp. Sexy women playing the electronic harp. He seems very upset to be interrupted from that.
This is the woman I keep seeing in my dreams, and she's not you, which is a shame, but she's the one I keep seeing, and I don't know who she is or where she's from. Well, probably the 80s.
There was no Worf or Wesley in this episode. Did anybody miss them?
I think that's probably the reason that this episode wasn't a perfect episode. If there was Wesley in this episode, it would have shot it right up there.
This is the only episode in which Mr. Homn talks.
What was the joke there? That he could talk all along. She just never lets him get a word in. Was that it?
I think so.
Was it a joke?
I don't know. If you would like to know any more about the Riker and Troi backstory, then I recommend you read Zadie, the Star Trek The Next Generation tie-in novel by Peter David. Well, we could go on talking about this one all day, but we sadly have to stop. Next time we'll be talking about the big goodbye. And it's a big goodbye from me now. Goodbye!
Goodbye!
Goodbye!